October 15, 1944. The dense forests of the Vosges Mountains in eastern France echoed with the distant rumble of artillery as morning mist clung to the pine branches like ghostly fingers. Private First Class. Joseph Patrick Sullivan crouched behind a hastily constructed barricade of fallen logs and earth, his worn baseball glove tucked securely in his combat pack alongside his standard issue gear. The 22-year-old from Chicago's South Side had spent the previous 4 seasons catching for the minor league Indianapolis Indians, developing reflexes that could snare a 90-mile-per-hour fastball with surgical precision. He had no idea that in less than 3 hours, those same reflexes would transform him from an ordinary infantryman into a legend whispered about in military circles for decades to come. Sullivan and his fellow soldiers from the 3rd Battalion, 141st Infantry Regiment of the 36th Infantry Division believed they were settling in for another routine morning of defensive positions along the Gothic line. They expected nothing more than sporadic sniper fire and perhaps a probing attack from German forces entrenched in the mountainous terrain ahead. How catastrophically wrong they would be proven. Before we dive into this story, make sure to subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. What unfolded that autumn morning would demonstrate how years spent perfecting the art of catching foul tips and stealing runners could become the difference between devastating defeat and miraculous survival for an entire battalion of American soldiers. The morning had begun with the methodical routine that characterized life on the front lines. Sergeant William "Bill" Henderson, a grizzled veteran from Nebraska who had survived the landings at Salerno, distributed ammunition and rations with the efficiency of a man who understood that small details often determined who lived and who returned home. Private Tommy Rodriguez from El Paso, Texas, cleaned his M1 Garand rifle with the same meticulous care his grandfather had taught him for maintaining farming equipment. Corporal James Mitchell from rural Alabama wrote letters to his wife Sarah, describing the beauty of the French countryside while carefully omitting any mention of the constant tension that kept every soldier's nerves stretched taut as piano wire. Sullivan occupied his time differently than most. While other soldiers played cards, wrote letters, or simply tried to catch precious moments of sleep, he practiced. Using smooth river stones he had collected during their advance through the valley, Sullivan would toss them high into the air and catch them barehanded, maintaining the hand-eye coordination that had made him one of the most promising catchers in the Indianapolis farm system. His teammates initially found this behavior odd, even obsessive, but they had grown accustomed to what they called Sully's stone game. The first indication that this particular morning would deviate from routine came at exactly 9:47, when Corporal Mitchell's radio crackled to life with an urgent transmission from battalion headquarters. Intelligence reports had identified increased German activity in the sector, with reconnaissance suggesting a possible counterattack aimed at dislodging American forces from their recently captured positions. The message concluded with standard warnings about maintaining vigilance and preparing for potential enemy contact. What the intelligence reports could not convey was the desperate situation developing within the German lines. Obergefreiter Hans Weber, a seasoned soldier from Bavaria who had fought through 3 years of brutal Eastern Front campaigns, led a small reconnaissance unit tasked with probing American defenses for weaknesses. Weber's superiors had provided him with 12 of the latest Model 24 stick grenades, each containing a devastating charge of TNT designed to clear enemy positions with lethal efficiency. The mission parameters were simple: locate American positions, create maximum disruption, and withdraw before superior firepower could respond. Weber's unit had approached the American lines with the stealth born of hard experience. Moving through the dense underbrush with practiced silence, they had identified what appeared to be a vulnerable section of the American defensive perimeter. From his concealed position, approximately 40 meters from Sullivan's position, Weber could observe the casual behavior of American soldiers who seemed unaware of imminent danger. The morning mist provided excellent concealment, and Weber felt confident that his unit could deliver a devastating surprise attack. The German plan called for a coordinated grenade assault, followed by immediate withdrawal. Weber and his 4 companions would simultaneously launch their explosive devices at different sections of the American line, creating chaos and confusion that would allow them to escape while American forces dealt with casualties and confusion. It was a textbook infiltration tactic that had proven successful numerous times throughout the European campaign. At exactly 10:15, Weber gave the signal for his unit to commence their attack. 5 German soldiers rose from concealment simultaneously, each armed with multiple grenades and precise instructions about their targets. The first wave consisted of 7 grenades thrown in rapid succession, each following a carefully calculated trajectory designed to land among the concentrated American positions. Weber himself launched the first grenade with the practiced motion of a man who had thrown countless similar devices throughout his military career. What happened next would be recounted in military academies and veteran gatherings for generations to come. Sullivan, who had been absently tossing and catching river stones while scanning the tree line, noticed the distinctive arc of incoming objects through the morning mist. His baseball-trained eyes immediately recognized the trajectory and timing of projectiles in flight, even though his conscious mind took several precious seconds to identify them as enemy grenades rather than practice stones. The neural pathways developed through thousands of hours behind home plate responded faster than rational thought. The first grenade landed approximately 6 feet from Sullivan's position, its metallic clink against stone instantly recognizable to any experienced soldier. Without conscious decision, Sullivan's body responded with the automatic reflexes of a catcher who had spent years snagging foul tips milliseconds before they could strike spectators. His right hand shot out, fingers forming the perfect catching position developed through endless repetition, and scooped up the live explosive device. Time seemed to compress into crystalline clarity as Sullivan's baseball instincts took complete control. The grenade felt surprisingly similar to a regulation baseball in weight and size, though its rough metal surface and distinctive stick handle immediately identified it as something far more dangerous. Without hesitation, Sullivan executed a perfect overhand throw, sending the explosive back along its original trajectory with the accuracy that had made him famous for picking off base runners. The second grenade landed 3 feet to his left. Again, pure reflex guided Sullivan's movements as he dove sideways, snatched the device from the ground, and hurled it back toward the German positions with the smooth motion of a catcher, making a throw to second base. The timing was so precise that Weber later reported seeing his own grenades returning through the air before the first had even exploded. Private Rodriguez, who witnessed the entire sequence from his position 10 yards away, later described the scene as absolutely surreal. Sullivan seemed to move with superhuman speed and precision, his hands working independently to catch and throw multiple objects, while his eyes tracked additional incoming projectiles. It was as if years of training had compressed into a few seconds of perfect athletic performance under the most extreme circumstances imaginable. The third and fourth grenades arrived almost simultaneously, testing Sullivan's ability to handle multiple catches in rapid succession. This scenario was familiar territory for any experienced catcher who had dealt with wild pitches and passed balls during crucial game situations. Sullivan's left hand secured the third grenade while his right hand was already in motion to intercept the fourth. With fluid precision that defied the chaos surrounding him, he launched both explosive devices back toward their points of origin. Sergeant Henderson, initially paralyzed by disbelief, suddenly understood what was happening and began shouting orders for other soldiers to take cover while Sullivan continued his extraordinary performance. The veteran sergeant had witnessed many acts of courage and quick thinking throughout his military career, but nothing had prepared him for watching one of his soldiers effectively playing catch with live enemy explosives. The fifth grenade required Sullivan to execute a diving catch that any professional scout would have applauded. Rolling across the rocky ground, he snagged the device inches before it would have landed among a group of soldiers who were still processing the unprecedented nature of the attack. Without breaking his momentum, Sullivan transitioned from his role into a throwing position and sent the grenade arcing back through the morning air. Weber and his unit found themselves in the unprecedented situation of watching their own explosive devices returning with deadly accuracy. The first returning grenade exploded approximately 15 meters from Weber's position, close enough to shower his unit with dirt and debris, while demonstrating the futility of their attack strategy. The realization that their carefully planned assault had been neutralized by a single American soldier, with impossible reflexes, created a moment of stunned disbelief among the German reconnaissance team. The sixth grenade arrived high and to Sullivan's right, requiring him to execute a leaping catch that stretched his athletic abilities to their absolute limit. Years of practice snagging pop fouls in foul territory had prepared him for exactly this type of challenging catch. His gloved hand closed around the explosive device at the apex of his jump, and he landed in perfect throwing position to continue his incredible defensive performance. By this time, other American soldiers had overcome their initial shock and begun providing covering fire toward the German positions. Private Rodriguez had begun directing additional troops to establish a defensive perimeter, while Sullivan continued neutralizing incoming grenades with methodical precision. Corporal Mitchell coordinated radio communications with battalion headquarters, though his initial reports were met with skepticism from officers who found the situation difficult to believe. The seventh and final grenade of the initial volley presented Sullivan with his most challenging catch of the morning. The explosive device arrived on a low trajectory that would have bounced off rocky ground before exploding among concentrated American positions. Sullivan executed a perfect backhand snag, the kind of catch that would have earned standing ovations from baseball fans, and immediately transitioned into his most accurate throw of the entire sequence. This final returning grenade landed directly in Weber's concealed position, forcing the German reconnaissance team to abandon their carefully prepared secondary attack and focus entirely on immediate survival. The explosion scattered equipment and destroyed their remaining grenades, effectively ending any possibility of continued offensive action. The entire sequence, from first grenade to last throw, had lasted approximately 28 seconds. In that brief span, Sullivan had successfully caught and returned 7 live enemy grenades, preventing what could have been devastating casualties among his battalion, while simultaneously neutralizing the German attack through the simple expedient of sending their own explosives back to them. Weber later reported to his superiors that the American position had been defended by soldiers with supernatural abilities who could catch artillery shells from the air and return them with pinpoint accuracy. This report, filed with complete seriousness, contributed to growing German concerns about American technological capabilities and secret training programs. For months afterward, German units in that sector approached American positions with extraordinary caution, convinced that they faced enemies equipped with advanced defensive technologies. The immediate aftermath of Sullivan's performance created a logistical challenge for military record-keeping. Sergeant Henderson's after-action report required multiple revisions before his superiors would accept its accuracy. The initial version was returned with annotations suggesting that Henderson clarify whether he meant Sullivan had thrown back empty grenade casings or had perhaps used specialized equipment for handling explosive devices. Private Rodriguez, whose eyewitness testimony corroborated Henderson's account, faced similar skepticism when interviewed by intelligence officers. His description of Sullivan's athletic performance was initially dismissed as combat shock or possible hallucination brought on by the stress of enemy attack. Only after multiple witnesses provided consistent accounts did military investigators begin to accept the extraordinary nature of what had occurred. Colonel Robert Mason, commanding officer of the 3rd Battalion, personally interviewed Sullivan 3 days after the incident. Mason, a career military officer who had graduated from West Point and served with distinction throughout the European campaign, approached the interview with considerable skepticism about the reported events. Sullivan's calm, matter-of-fact description of his actions, combined with his obvious discomfort with the attention his performance had generated, gradually convinced Mason that the reports were accurate. During the interview, Sullivan demonstrated his catching abilities using practice grenades provided by the battalion's training officer. His speed and accuracy with the dummy devices convinced even the most skeptical observers that his performance under fire had been genuine. Colonel Mason's subsequent recommendation for Sullivan's Medal of Honor citation described the incident as the most extraordinary example of individual defensive action witnessed in modern warfare. The long-term implications of Sullivan's morning performance extended far beyond immediate military recognition. Word of the incident spread throughout Allied forces in the region, creating a legend that grew with each retelling. American soldiers began requesting transfers to units that included Sullivan, believing that his presence provided supernatural protection against German attacks. German forces, conversely, began avoiding sectors where Sullivan's unit was known to be stationed. Military tacticians studied Sullivan's actions for insights into defensive strategies that could be systematically implemented. The idea of training soldiers to catch and return enemy grenades was seriously considered by several training commands, though practical testing revealed that Sullivan's combination of natural ability, extensive practice, and perfect timing under pressure was essentially impossible to replicate through standard military training methods. Sullivan himself remained characteristically modest about his achievement throughout the remainder of his military service. When asked by war correspondents to describe his thoughts during the grenade sequence, he consistently replied that he had simply reacted according to his training, treating the incoming explosives like foul balls that needed to be caught before they could harm spectators. This humble perspective, combined with his obvious discomfort with publicity, only enhanced his growing reputation among both Allied and German forces. The baseball connection proved irresistible to military public relations officers seeking positive stories to boost morale on the home front. Sullivan's photograph appeared in newspapers across America, often accompanied by articles describing how athletic training had prepared American soldiers for the unique challenges of modern warfare. Professional baseball teams began incorporating military-themed promotions featuring Sullivan's story, and several major league franchises extended offers for tryouts after the war ended. Weber, the German reconnaissance leader who had witnessed Sullivan's performance firsthand, survived the war and eventually immigrated to the United States in 1952. Through a remarkable coincidence, he settled in Chicago and became a regular attendee at minor league baseball games. When he learned about Sullivan's post-war baseball career with the Chicago White Sox organization, Weber made contact through mutual friends to meet the man whose reflexes had ended his military unit's final offensive operation. Their meeting, which took place at Comiskey Park during the 1954 season, was documented by sports writers who found the story irresistible. Weber described his amazement at watching Sullivan play professional baseball, noting that the same fluid movements he had witnessed in combat were clearly visible behind home plate. Sullivan, for his part, expressed gratitude that Weber had survived the war and welcomed the opportunity to meet his former opponent under peaceful circumstances. The technical analysis of Sullivan's performance, conducted by military engineers and athletic specialists, revealed several factors that made his achievement possible. His years as a catcher had developed exceptional hand-eye coordination, specifically adapted to tracking and intercepting objects moving at high speed. The muscle memory developed through repetitive practice allowed him to execute complex catching motions without conscious thought, freeing his mind to process multiple simultaneous targets. The weight and size similarity between regulation baseballs and German stick grenades created an almost perfect match for Sullivan's trained reflexes. Military analysts calculated that the grenades fell within 2 ounces and half an inch of standard baseball dimensions, meaning Sullivan's hands automatically formed the correct grip and throwing position for each explosive device. This dimensional coincidence was entirely accidental, but proved crucial to his successful defensive performance. The psychological impact of Sullivan's actions extended beyond immediate tactical advantages. German forces in the Vosges sector began experiencing decreased morale as stories of the American soldier who could catch artillery spread throughout their ranks. Intelligence reports from that period indicate German units requested transfers away from areas where Sullivan's battalion was stationed, creating operational advantages that persisted for months after the original incident. American forces, conversely, experienced significantly improved morale and confidence. Sullivan's demonstration that individual skill and quick thinking could neutralize seemingly overwhelming enemy attacks inspired soldiers throughout the region to approach defensive situations with increased optimism and creativity. Training programs began incorporating athletic exercises designed to improve reflexes and hand-eye coordination, though none produced results approaching Sullivan's natural abilities. The post-war analysis of the incident contributed to significant changes in military training philosophy. Athletic background became a more important factor in personnel assignments, particularly for positions requiring quick reflexes and spatial awareness. Sullivan's story was incorporated into military academy curricula as an example of how civilian skills could translate into extraordinary military effectiveness under appropriate circumstances. Sullivan completed his military service in May 1945 and returned to professional baseball with the Chicago White Sox organization. His wartime experiences had enhanced rather than diminished his athletic abilities, and he quickly advanced through the minor league system to reach AAA level by 1947. Scouts noted that his defensive skills had improved dramatically, with reaction times that seemed almost supernatural to opposing teams. His professional baseball career lasted until 1956, when a knee injury ended his playing days. Throughout those years, Sullivan maintained contact with many of his wartime companions, attending annual reunions where the grenade incident was invariably recounted with growing embellishment. Despite the mythical proportions the story eventually assumed, the basic facts remained consistent across all witness accounts. After retiring from baseball, Sullivan worked as a youth coach in Chicago's public school system, passing along both athletic skills and life lessons learned during his military service. Thousands of young athletes benefited from instruction by the man who had demonstrated that athletic training could serve purposes far beyond sports competition. His coaching philosophy emphasized the importance of practice and preparation for unexpected situations, lessons drawn directly from his wartime experiences. The military recognition of Sullivan's achievement culminated in 1948, when he received the Medal of Honor in a White House ceremony attended by President Harry Truman. The citation specifically noted that his extraordinary defensive action in neutralizing 7 enemy explosive devices through individual skill and courage prevented significant casualties and demonstrated the highest traditions of military service. Sullivan remained characteristically humble during the ceremony, noting that his actions had been automatic responses developed through athletic training rather than conscious heroic decision-making. Weber, who had relocated to Chicago and established a successful construction business, attended the Medal of Honor ceremony as Sullivan's guest. Their friendship, which developed over shared experiences and mutual respect, became a symbol of post-war reconciliation between former enemies. Weber often spoke to veterans groups about his perspective on Sullivan's actions, emphasizing the extraordinary nature of what he had witnessed and the importance of individual excellence in determining historical outcomes. The technical innovations inspired by Sullivan's performance included specialized training equipment designed to improve soldiers' abilities to handle thrown objects under combat conditions. Military engineers developed practice grenades with adjustable weights and timing mechanisms, allowing soldiers to develop defensive skills similar to Sullivan's. While no subsequent soldier achieved comparable results, the training programs did produce measurable improvements in overall defensive capabilities. The legend of Sullivan's grenade-catching performance spread throughout international military communities, inspiring similar defensive innovations in Allied armies. British, Canadian, and Australian forces incorporated athletic training components into their military preparation programs, seeking to develop soldiers with enhanced reflexes and spatial awareness. The success of these programs varied, but Sullivan's example demonstrated the potential value of athletic background in military applications. The psychological warfare implications of Sullivan's story were not lost on military strategists. The deliberate circulation of his legend among German forces contributed to decreased offensive activity in several sectors, as enemy units became reluctant to employ grenade tactics against American positions. This psychological advantage translated into reduced casualties and improved tactical flexibility for Allied forces throughout the remainder of the European campaign. Sullivan's post-military life included extensive speaking engagements at schools, athletic clubs, and military installations across the country. His presentations emphasized the importance of preparation, practice, and quick thinking in overcoming seemingly impossible challenges. Audiences invariably found his humble presentation and matter-of-fact description of extraordinary events both inspiring and remarkably credible. The documentary evidence of Sullivan's performance, including multiple witness statements, battlefield reports, and German intelligence assessments, created one of the most thoroughly documented individual actions of World War II. Military historians used his story as an example of how individual excellence could influence tactical outcomes, while athletic researchers studied his reflexes and training methods for insights into human performance capabilities under extreme stress. The broader implications of Sullivan's story extended into discussions about the relationship between civilian skills and military effectiveness. His demonstration that athletic training could translate directly into life-saving defensive capabilities influenced military recruitment strategies and training programs for decades following the war. The connection between sports and military preparedness became a standard component of athletic program justification at educational institutions throughout America. Weber's perspective on the incident, documented through extensive interviews conducted in the 1970s and 80s, provided unique insights into the psychological impact of facing an opponent with seemingly supernatural abilities. His descriptions of the disbelief and confusion among German forces emphasized how individual exceptional performance could create tactical advantages far beyond immediate defensive effectiveness. The relationship between Sullivan and Weber, which continued until Weber's passing in 1987, represented one of the most remarkable friendships to emerge from World War II. Their mutual respect, based on shared understanding of combat stress and professional admiration for each other's abilities, demonstrated the possibility of genuine reconciliation between former enemies who had faced each other under the most extreme circumstances imaginable. Sullivan's influence on subsequent generations of athletes and military personnel continued long after his own active careers ended. His coaching methods, which incorporated military-inspired preparation and mental conditioning, produced numerous successful athletes who credited his instruction with developing their abilities to perform under pressure. The principles he taught, based on his unique combination of athletic and military experience, became standard components of high-level athletic training programs. The scientific analysis of Sullivan's performance, conducted by researchers from multiple universities and military institutions, revealed important insights into human reaction times and motor control under stress. His ability to maintain precise coordination while processing multiple simultaneous threats provided valuable data for understanding optimal performance capabilities. These studies contributed to improved training methods for both athletes and military personnel. The cultural impact of Sullivan's story extended beyond military and athletic communities to influence broader American perceptions of individual capability and preparation. His demonstration that ordinary citizens, through dedicated training and natural ability, could achieve extraordinary results under pressure, reinforced cultural values, emphasizing individual excellence and preparation for unexpected challenges. The memorial established in Sullivan's honor at his Chicago high school includes displays of both his athletic achievements and military service, emphasizing the connection between the two aspects of his remarkable life. Students visiting the memorial learn about the importance of developing skills that may prove valuable in unexpected contexts, carrying forward the lessons of his extraordinary morning in the French mountains. And that concludes our story. If you made it this far, please share your thoughts in the comments. What part of this historical account surprised you most? Don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories from World War II, and check out the video on screen for another incredible tale from history. Until next time.